Hello, welcome to another book reading live lesson. We're on live 80 of Comunidade de Inglês Lab. And today we are talking about chapter 6 of the book The Mountain is You. Lembrando que é um livro que ainda não existe em português. Pode ser que exista no futuro? Pode ser que exista no futuro. Existe hoje? Não existe ainda. Por isso, hoje nós falaremos sobre esse livro tão especial. Dando continuidade, nós estamos chegando ao fim dele. São 7 capítulos, esse é o capítulo 6. E a gente vai hoje da página 171 até 135 até 170 e alguma coisa. Que é o capítulo 6 todo. O tempo de aula hoje pode passar um pouco de 1 hora, então já se organiza aí para passar por esse processo, para a gente ir junto por esse tempo de aula. Se você tiver qualquer dúvida, deixe nos comentários aqui que a gente vai responder a sua dúvida também. Lembrando que é um exercício de leitura dinâmica. With that being said, let's go. Wait. Hold on, give me 1 second. What's happening in here? Why does it say 175? Building a new future. I think we're on 135, right? Então, vamos dar uma conferida aqui antes de iniciarmos. Acho que a gente está no capítulo 5 hoje, e não no capítulo 7. Vamos dar uma última conferida para nós entrarmos na aula de forma correta. 125. 130. 33. 35. That's it. Hoje nós estamos aqui, olha, Chapter 5. Conferir mais uma vez aqui no documento da aula anterior, para nós certificarmos de que está tudo certo, de que não estamos fazendo a aula de forma duplicada. Então, a aula 79, você pode ver aqui na tela, nós fechamos ela exatamente. Aqui, olha, página 135. 135. There's a better way to feed your emotional hunger, and it's not fighting yourself for your own inner peace. A better way to feed your emotional hunger, and it's not fighting yourself for your own inner peace. Okay. So let's continue. Page 137, chapter 5. So let's fix it. Vamos só ajustar aqui. And there we go. Take a screenshot. Amazing. We got it. Muito bom. So let's go. Releasing the past. Throughout the course of our lives, we will routinely go through a process of self-reinventation. Over time, we are meant to change, and we are designed to evolve. Our bodies show us this as we eliminate and replace to the point that some argue we are essentially completely made new again every 7 years. Our mental and emotional growth follow a similar process, though it tends to occur much more often. It makes sense then that some of the most profound suffering comes from resistance to this natural process. We are in pain because though we must change our lives, we're holding onto baggage and debris from the past. As we carry unsolved emotions from day to day, we gradually move our past trauma into our future lives. Releasing the past is a process and a practice, one that we have to learn. This is where it begins. How to start letting go. We cannot force ourselves to let go, no matter how much you know you want to. Right now, we're being called to release your old self, your prior afflictions, your past relationships, and all of the guilt from the time you spend denying yourself what you really wanted, you needed out of life. Recovering from self sabotage always necessitates a process of letting go. However, you cannot force something out of your brain, space, no matter how much you don't want it to be there. You cannot simply lose your grip, relax a little, and will yourself to stop thinking entirely about something around which your entire world used to orbit. This is not how it goes. You're not going to let go the moment someone tells you to move on. The day you realize you have to admit certain defeat, the heart dropping second it occurs to you, the hope is indeed futile. You do not let go by simply willing yourself not to care anymore. This is something that people who have never been really hung up onto something would assume. This is something that people who have never been deeply attached to something for a sense of safety and security and love in their future believe. There is nothing wrong with you because you almost get angry when people tell you to just let go nonchalantly, as though they cannot fathom the storms in your head and heart. How can you become so passive about something you have spent so much of your time in your life actively working to maintain and then restore? You can't and you don't. You start to let go on the day you take one step toward building a new life, and then let yourself lie in bed and stare at the ceiling and cry for as many hours as you need. You start to let go on the day you realize that you cannot continue to revolve around a missing gap in your life, and going on as you were before will simply not be an option. You start to let go at the moment you realize that this is the impetus, this is the catalyst, this is the moment the movies are made about, and the books are written about, and songs are inspired by. This is the moment you realize you will never find peace standing in the ruins of what you used to be. You can only move on if you start building something new. You let go when you build a new life so immersive and engaging and exciting. You slowly, over time, forget about the past. When we try to force ourselves to let go of something, we grip in onto it tighter and harder and more passionately than ever before. It's like if someone tells you to not think of a white elephant. That's the only thing you'll be able to focus on. Our hearts work the same way as our minds in this regard. As long as we're telling ourselves that we must let go, the more deeply we feel attached. So I don't tell don't tell yourself to let go. Instead, tell yourself that you can cry for as long as you need, that you can fall to pieces and be a mess and let your life collapse and crumble. Tell yourself that you can let your foundations fall through. What you will realize is that you are still standing. What you build in the wake and the aftermath of loss will be so profound, so stunning. You will realize that maybe the loss was part of the plan. Maybe it awakened a part of you that would have remained dormant had you not been pushed the way you were. If you are certain that you cannot let go of what is hurting you, then don't. But take one step today and another tomorrow to rebuild a new life for yourself, piece by piece, day by day. Because sooner or later, you're going to go an hour and realize you didn't think about them or it. Then a day, then a week, and then years and swaths of your life drifts by, and everything you thought would break you becomes a distant memory, something you look back at and smile. Everything you lose becomes something you are profoundly grateful for. With time, you see that it was not the path, it was what was standing in your way. Nice. So, it's talking about letting go, and the lesson is don't try to let go. Então, muito legal. O objetivo dessa primeira parte aqui é falar como que você deixa as coisas do passado no passado. So, how to let go. Como é que você deixa as coisas de lado? Como é que você deixa as coisas? E aí o que a escritora fala é you don't, just move on. Então, você não tem que focar em let go. Você tem que focar em develop your life. Você tem que focar em desenvolver a vida. E aí, como consequência, você vai deixar coisas que não vão fazer mais parte da sua vida. Só que se você forçar e focar em deixar as coisas de lado, você vai ativamente pensar nisso e não vai conseguir deixar let go. The psychological trick to release old experiences. Okay. Just because an experience has ended doesn't mean it's over. We store unfinished and unresolved emotional experiences within our bodies. Cognitively, we often find that we are stunned by the time in our lives in which we were damaged or traumatized. We got scared. We never got over the fear. And as a result, we stopped growing. Often, what we don't realize is that the experiences that hurts us most aren't usually the ones that we are indifferent about. There is something within them that we deeply wanted or still desire. We weren't broken by a breakup, we're broken by wanting love that wasn't right for us. We weren't devastated by loss, we were devastated because we wanted so badly for that person or thing to remain in our lives. We mentally become trapped in these places from which we still crave and experience. What we don't realize is that we have to sort of free ourselves from it so we can go on forth and create it in real time. Instead of accepting the ways we think life did not work out, we have to be able to see what was at the core of our desire and figure out a way to still give ourselves that experience now. If you truly want to let go of a past experience, you have to re enter it through your memory. Close your eyes and find the feeling in your body that is uncomfortable. This is your portal to its root. Follow the feeling and ask it to show you where it started. You remember a time, place, or experience. Sometimes the memory is fresh enough that you don't need to do this. You can simply re enter the memory by imagining that you're back where it all began. Now, what you have to do is to superimpose a narrative to your younger self. You need to imagine that your healed and happy older self is impairing some wisdom. Imagine sitting next to your younger self as they got their heart broken and giving them very specific instructions about why this is absolutely for the best, and although they cannot know it yet, there is another relationship out there that is far, far better. Imagine sitting next to your younger self and when they felt really down, and giving them the exact instructions regarding what they need to do to feel better. When they need to call, who they need to call, where they need to go, what they need to begin doing, and what they need to stop doing. Most importantly, imagine telling your younger self that absolutely everything, yes, everything is going to be okay. That their fears are largely unfolded, that good things are coming, and that life will turn out well in the end. You have to do this to release the old attachment and allow that part of yourself to reattach to the present moment and what exists within it. Though you cannot change what happened in the past by shifting your perspective of it, you can change how you are right now. You can change the story and you can change your life. You can stop holding onto the old life in which you were required to be someone you inherently are not. The truth is that when we are unhealthy attached to something in the past, our perspective of it is often distorted. We aren't seeing reality for what it is, and we need to assist ourselves in being able to broaden our mindset and open up to the truth instead of longing for what we didn't get then. We have to release ourselves from the past and start putting our energy into building that experience right now. When we do this, we become free to step into the field of infinite potential. We become free to be who we always wanted, to create what we always wanted, and to have what we wanted, what we always wanted. The time is now, and the place is here. Ruminating over the past doesn't mean you want to return to it. Not being able to forget what happened doesn't mean you're content to keep reliving it again and again, even though right now you very much are. The wildest thing about life is how unassumingly it keeps moving. You lose the person closest to you, and the world affords you a few days of breathing, and then you're expected to just keep going. You go through something so life shifting, mind altering, and deeply traumatic, then find that society has a small bandwidth for tolerating your fear. Here's what you're allowed. You're okay to cry and you're forgiven for being sad and canceling a few plans here and there. You're permitted a few days off of work and someone to listen to you vent a handful of times. But processing and accepting the gravity of something that touched every last interview is not something you can't do a mental health day. It's not something the world affords you enough time for. And so you botch the job, you carry on. One day, you wake up and discover that every identifiable measure you have moved on. You're so many miles from where you started, and you can't even remember it clearly. What you're underestimating is the fact that though you can leave the place or a person or a situation, you can't leave yourself. Why would it over why would it ever come as a surprise that you keep thinking about the past? You weren't given the opportunity to shine a light on that particular darkness and deem it okay. You weren't given so much of anything at all. When your mind is stuck in the past, it isn't because it wasn't to return there. It's because you were impacted far more deeply than you ever realized. And aftershocks are still rippling through you. They surface as thoughts here and there, but under the surface is a deep echo that has the power to place you right back where you were as though you never left. You can leave the country, get remarried, build a whole new career, date 12 other people, find an entirely new friend group, feel happier and more fulfilled than ever, and still grieve for what your younger self went through. Even though you're different on the outside, that part of you still very much exists within. That younger self doesn't just want you to keep walking, it wants you to turn around and acknowledge it. You will with time. You're not wrong or broken for feeling the way that you do. You responded to your circumstances as any healthy person would have. If anyone else was in your shoes, they would have reacted the same way. They would feel the exact same way. You were a healthy person who went through something traumatic and responded accordingly. You're someone who moved on because they had to. Put who wasn't sick enough to dissociate entirely from the past. But instead of put, but who wasn't sick enough to dissociate entirely from the past. The fact that you can still recall what happened is a signal that you're healthier than you think, more willing to heal than you realize, and more forgiving than you ever imagined you could be. Everything that's haunted you is rising in your consciousness. So you can see it and bow out with grace. You're not the person you were, even if all those pieces are still very much part of you. You're not broken for being in pain. You're seeing yourself out of it. Ok. So, pretty much, quando a gente passa por situações difíceis, a gente pode dar sequência, continuar, e talvez a gente continue lembrando disso depois de muito tempo, mas não significa que você não está mais resistente, mais forte, mudado em vários aspectos. So let's see what's up is next. Just take a screenshot of this beginning. Okay. Just take a screenshot. Okay. Page 141. All right. So let's move down here and let's continue. Now we're on page 147. Letting go of unrealistic expectations. Okay. Organize it. Let's go. It's not that brave to say you love your body only after you've contorted it to precisely what you wanted it to look like. It is not that brave to say that you don't care about possessions when you have access to everything in the world. It's not that brave to say that you aren't motivated by money when you have enough of it. When you only find happiness and peace after you've fixed every flaws, mastered every challenge, and are living decidedly in the after part of the picture of your life, you have not resolved anything. You have only reinforced the idea that you cannot be okay until everything is perfect. The truth is that you do not change your life with your fix when you fix every piece and call that healing. You change your life when you start showing up exactly as you are. You change your life when you become comfortable with being happy here, even if you want to go forward. You change your life when you can't love yourself, even though you don't look exactly the way you want to. You change your life when you are principled about money and love and relationships. When you treat strangers as well as you do your CEO, and when you manage 1,000 the same you would $10,000. You change your life when you start doing the truly scary thing, which is showing up exactly as you are. Most of the problems that exist in our lives are distractions from the real problem, which is what we are not comfortable in the present moment. We are here now. So we must heal that first. We must address that initiality because everything else builds from it. We must be brave and confront our discomfort. Sit with it, even if it churns our stomachs and pinches our faces. It makes us certain that we'll never find a way out. We will. We must listen to what's wrong, feel it, move through it, allow it to be. The truth is that this discomfort is the true problem. And we're running around trying to fix one thing after another because those are just symptoms. If you become okay with money, you're unto our bodies. If you're okay with our bodies, we're onto our relationships. Once we master all the things we care about, we start at the beginning. We try to level up, to change, to fix, to identify a problem that is any problem, but the actual problem at hand. When you start showing up as exactly who you are, you start radically changing your life. You start receiving authentic love, you start doing your best and most profitable and effortless work. You start laughing, you start enjoying things again, you start realizing that you just needed anything to project all this fear into. So you choose the most vulnerable and common issues in life. In life. Just plug my charger, my phone charger. Cool. All right. In life, When you start showing up exactly as you are, you cut the bullshit. You declare to the world that you will not only love yourself when it sees you as worthy, you will not only have values when you have everything that you could ever need. You not only be principled once you get where you want to be. You not only be happy when once someone loves you. When you show up as you are, you disrupt this pattern. The goodness in life is no longer reserved for some version of you that you'll probably never be. This was always a game for you to explain to yourself why it is you didn't feel good naturally. Before you knew how to start showing up and allowing your feelings when you still lived in the darkness, you had to suppress that and project it onto other issues. No longer. You're showing up as you are today and taking what's yours, not what belongs to some imaginary version of yourself, not what you think the world thinks you're worthy of. You here now. That is the true healing. In fact, the universe does not allow perfection. Without breaks and gaps, there would be no growth. Nature depends on imperfection. Fault lines make mountains, star implosions become supernovas, and the death of one season creates the rebirth of the next. You're not here to live up to the exact expectation that you've mustered up in your head. You're not here to do everything precisely right and precisely on time. To do so would require stripping your life of spontaneity, curiosity, and awe. What leaves the path is clearing the path. Page 151. Okay. Let's see. What leaves the path is clearing the path. There is nothing you can do to win someone or something that is not meant to be yours. You can fight with everything you have. You can hold on for as long as you can. You can force yourself into mental gymnastics to pick apart signs. You can have your friends read into texts and emails. You can decide that you know what's best for you and right for you. Mostly, you can wait. You can wait forever. What isn't right for you will never remain in your life. There's no job, person, or city that you can force to be right for you if it is not. Though you can pretend for a while, you can play games with yourself, you can justify and make ultimatums, you can say you try just a little longer, you can make excuses for why things aren't working out right now. The truth is that what is right for you will come to you and stay with you and won't stray from you for long. The truth is that when something is right for you, it brings you clarity. And when something is wrong for you, it brings you confusion. When you get stuck, when you try to make something that's wrong for you right, when you try to force it into a place in your life in which it doesn't belong, you get split. You breed this internal conflict which you cannot resolve. The more it intensifies, the more you mistake it for passion. How could you ever feel so strongly about something that isn't right? You can because you can use your mind to get attached. You can fall in love with potential as opposed to reality. You can orchestrate and choreograph dances of how you live out your days when things finally settle into their rightful place. You can hinge on a fantasy life in which everything you think and want has taken root in your everyday life. But it isn't showing up. It's just that, a fantasy. When we start to deeply believe in an illusion, it becomes a delusion. And a delusion can be a really compelling thing. The truth is that it is not right for you will never remain with you. What is not right for you will never remain with you. Though you might want to pretend that you don't know if this is the case, you do. You can feel it. It's why you have to grip so hard and with so little give. The things that are right for you can be free from you. You don't have to convince them that they are right. You don't have to line up the evidence as though you're pleading your case. Sometimes we get lost in old dreams. We get lost in what the lives others wanted us to have. We get stuck on what we have thought we would be, what we assumed we would have. We get derailed by all the ideas floating around heads about what it could and should be if only things were different and only everything would click. That's why life gives us this kind of insurance. Sometimes it pulls away from us what is wrong for us when we're not willing to see it for ourselves. Because the truth is that we don't want what is not right for us. We're simply attached to it. We're simply afraid. We're simply stuck in the assumption that nothing better will replace it, that its absence only open up a well of endless, infinite suffering for which there will be no solution. We don't want what is not right for us. We're just scared to let go of what we believe will make us secure. The funny part is there is nothing that makes us more insecure than hanging around what isn't right for us. There's nothing that will collapse faster. There's nothing that will bring us inner turmoil quite like that. What is not right for you will never remain in your life, and not because there are forces beyond us navigating the minutiae of our everyday lives. What is not right for you will not remain with you because deep down you know it's not right. You are the one who eventually lets go, sees reality, and walks away. You are the one resisting, you're the one holding back. You are the one concocting healing fantasies about how great it will be when you force something wrong to finally be right. What is not right for you does not remain with you because you don't want it, and so you don't choose it. You step away when you're ready. You let go when you're able, and you realize all along that all you were really in love with was a little trick of the light that made you feel safe. All right, next one, page 154, recovering from emotional trauma. Just try one thing. Page 154, recovering from emotional trauma. Let's see what's up. One second. So let's go. 154, recovering from emotional trauma. You might think trauma is in your head, in the metaphorical sense. It's actually in your body in the literal sense. Trauma is what happens when something scares you and you do not get over that fear. If you do not resolve or defeat it, you get into and remain in a sustained state or fight or flight, which is essentially the human panic response for survival. Trauma is the experience of disconnecting from a fundamental feeling of safety. Unless you're able to reestablish that connection, a particularly destructive bias distorts your worldview. You become hypersensitive, which means that you will ascribe intent, overthink, overreact, become triggered by innocuous stimuli, personalize neutral situations, and remain in a mental combat mode. After experiencing trauma, your brain will rewire itself temporarily to seek out the potential threat in anything, which makes it very difficult to both move on from the initial problem and then not to develop a victim complex. After all, your brain is literally trying to show you every imaginable way the world could be out to get you. This is why exposure is so effective as a treatment for fear or anxiety. By gradually reintroducing the stressor into someone's life and showing them that they are able to handle it, the brain is able to return to a neutral state because a feeling of control and security is being reestablished. This is also why people who have stronger social ties and mental resilience prior to a traumatic event are more likely to use the event as a catalyst for self reflection, growth, compassion, and healing as opposed to self destruction. They had multiple ties to that essential feeling of safety. So even if one was eroded or severed, others still were there to support them. What happens to your brain after a traumatic event? Neurologically, neurologically, we process stress in three parts of the brain. The first is the amygdala, the second, the hippocampus, and the third is the frontal cortex. Individuals suffering from stress disorder, PTSD, have a smaller hippocampus, center of emotion and memory, increased amygdala function, the center of rumination and creativity, and decreased media prefrontal interior cingulate function, the center that governs complex behaviors like planning and self development. It becomes clear then why trauma tends to have the following impact on us. Okay, right. Our brains stop processing memory fully, leaving us with fragments of what happened, sometimes contributing to the feeling of dissociation. Our ability to manage a range of emotions decreases. We become tearful and stuck, have trouble planning for the future, and our self development and actualization come to a halt. When we enter a state of fight or flight, our bodies literally cease to advance functions that is not necessarily for our survival. The body remains receptors, become extremely sensitive and reactive to stimuli. This is a beautiful and essential part of being human. It's kept us alive as a species. However, it's not a state that is meant to be sustained. Centuries ago, when we were at the lower rung of actualization or the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, what concerned us the most was physical survival. Today, our focus is primarily on self actualization and meaningfulness, in trying to feel safe through social acceptance, money, or mental acuity. With all of this gray area, it seems obvious that more people would be mentally and emotionally struggling than they did prior, despite having more physical challenges to overcome. Recovery comes down to something very simple, which is restoring the feeling of one's safety. However, the most important part of this restoration is that you must reestablish a feeling of safety in the exact area of life that traumatized you. Often, if someone is traumatized by a relationship they had when they were young, they will reinvest that energy into valuing being attractive or successful. To them, they believe that if they are good enough, they can never be denied or rejected again. However, we all know that this is not how this works. It actually makes us more unhealthy and destructive attachments to this to these things. We are traumatized by relationship. We store the feeling or safety by working on or other healthy, safe relationships. If we're traumatized by money, we restore that feeling of safety by doing what we must to ensure we have enough and by saving up an emergency expense. For traumatized by job loss, we restore the feeling of safety by having a backup plan or a side gig in line in case it were to happen again. For traumatized by being bullied, we restore the feeling of safety by finding new friends. What most people try to do is overcompensate in an area of life that's not the real problem. For example, if they struggle in relationships, they hoard money to keep themselves feeling safe. Of course, this is always futile because the problem never gets resolved. Your trauma is not in your head, it is literally a changed state in your brain. The only way to help your body to return to its actual state is by recreating the feeling of safety that allows you to turn off survival mode and return to normal life. Releasing emotional backlog. 158. Go. There we go. Releasing emotional backlog. Your emotional backlog is like your email inbox. It might be a simple analogy, but it's an effective one. When you experience emotions, it's as though you're getting little messages from your body stacking up one at a time. If you don't ever open them, you end up 1,000 plus notification deep, totally overlooking crucial information as important insight that you need to move your life forward. At the same time, you can't sit around all day and respond to every message just as it come up. You'd never get anything done. It is a mistake to assume that emotions are optional experiences. They are not. We're masters of avoiding our feelings, and we do it in so many ways. Often, we rely on substances that physically numb us, projections and judgments that place the attention of someone else's faults as opposed to our own. All kinds of other worldly pursuits, and on the most basic level, tensing our bodies up so efficiently that we are rendered incapable of feeling. Psychologically, you probably know that this doesn't work for long. The backlog starts to jam eventually. You're forced to sit and be still and sleep and cry as feel it all. I wish there were some poetic, mystical truth to share here, but there isn't. There's only our anatomy, the physiology of what's happening inside you when you feel. Emotions are physical experiences. We flush our bodies of everything, and regularly so. We defecate, we sweat, we cry. We literally shed our entire skin once a month. Feelings are no different. They are experiences that must likewise be released. When not felt, emotions become embodies. They become literally stuck in our body. This is because they have something called a motor component, which means that the minute that begin, before you can suppress or ignore them, they create a micromuscular activation. Our bodies respond instantaneously. We often store pain and tension in the area of the body where an expression began but was never fully materialized. This is because, neurological speaking, the part of the brain that regulates emotions, the anterior cingulate, is next to the premotor area, which means that when a feeling is processed, and it immediately begins to generate a physical body's response. The premotor area connects to the motor cortex and then spins back into the specific muscle that are going to express the emotion. Which muscle expresses which emotions? Well, it depends. We have a lot of languages that clues us into where we have physical reactions to emotions. We often feel fear in our stomach. Think of a nervous stomach or a gut instinct. Heartache in our chest. That's where the whole broken heart thing comes from. Stress and anxiety is on our shoulders. Think of the weight of the world on your shoulders. And relationship problems is the neck. Think there are pain in the neck. But it actually goes even deeper than this. Let's say that someone did something to you that crossed the boundary, and your instinct was to tell them. However, because you stewed it was not effectively to literally scream, you held back. Though this may have been though this may have been the right thing to do in the moment, your body may be storing residual tension in the neck or throat area. In other cases, people can experience psychosomatic effects of their emotions that are a bit more abstract, such as a pain in their knees or feet when they're traumatized by moving forward in their lives, and so on. The truth is that our bodies are speaking to us in voiceless symbols. If we can learn to interpret what they're saying, we can heal ourselves in an entirely new way. So, you know that emotions sometimes get stored in our body when they're not fully expressed. But this, as it is, how do we begin to flush ourselves from them? Good question. There are a number of strategies that you can use to do this, and what matters is that it's effective for you. There is no one size fits all, but there are a few options that tends to work well for most people, particularly when they are used in tandem. Stop meditating to feel calm. Start meditating to just feel. I know that this goes against everything you've heard about meditation, but it's actually the point of meditation. If you sit down for a 10-minute session and try to force yourself to be relaxed and light, you're effectively doing the same type of suppression that likely gave you that need to meditate in the first place. Instead, the point of meditation is to sit idly as you experience all of those feelings come up. Rage, the fear, the sadness, the overwhelming mind chatter. And in spite of how alluring and triggering it may be, you learn to stay still and not respond to it. You learn to allow these thoughts and feelings to come up and then pass by virtue or you not reacting to them. This takes practice. Use breath scans to find residual tension in the body. It actually doesn't take too much extra effort to figure out when your body are storing pain, where your body is storing pain. You feel it. It's in your chest, your stomach, your shoulders, whatever is bothering you. However, if you're unsure, or if you want to zero it specifically where that pain is, do something called a breath scan. In this, you will breathe in and out slowly and without taking a break between breaths. When you do this, you will begin to notice that you might hit a snag or hiccup somewhere. That is the process of taking your breath. You start to feel precisely where in your body you're storing tension. Once you know, you can start to go into that feeling more, visualizing what it is, where it came from, what it needs you to know. Often, in this scenario, you're brought back to specific memories or past versions of ourselves that need assistance or guidance. Use a journal to write down your experience and see. And remember that the body often speaks in metaphors. So don't necessarily take everything literally. Sweat, move, cry. The last, the hardest, and the most important part of releasing your emotions is really the one thing you have to do. You have to feel them. Sometimes this means allowing yourself to feel like total shit. Sometimes this means pushing yourself through a workout, yoga, stretching, walking, or confronting triggering thoughts and letting yourself cry out what's bothering you. Remember that emotional health is not the experience of being perpetually calm and happy of all the time. It is the experience of allowing a range of emotions, both good and bad, and not getting too stuck on either one. Similarly, mental health and self mastery is the ability to see and feel and experience a thought without responding to it. The response, or lack therefore, is where we regain our power and reclaim our lives. You were not born to be perfect. You're not born to be happy of all the time. But if you can commit each day to doing the work of being fully human and feeling even when you're afraid, you can transcend in a way that is truly beautiful. Okay. What it really means to heal your mind. One, two, four. Healing your mind is not the same thing as healing your body. Uh, 1 second. So, healing your mind is not the same thing as healing your body. When you're physically wounded, you often go through a progressive linear repair. You get better until one day you're nearly back to where you were before. Healing your mind is completely different because you weren't returning to what you were before. You were getting yourself and becoming someone entirely new. If that seems a little bit violent and harsh, it should. Healing is not a lovely ascension into comfort and wellness to be experienced once and forevermore. Healing yourself is the most uncomfortable, disruptive, important thing you will ever do. Healing yourself is returning to your most natural state, which is angry for personal freedom, irreverent to the suffocating opinions of others, creates window without doubts, showing up without fear, and love without stipulations and agreements or conditions. Who you truly are is at once the best version of yourself you might not have ever imagined, and the most essential version of yourself that you have always been. And getting to that place, it requires a lot. Healing requires you to take an honest inventory of your grudges and aggression and the wells of longing and fear you've been ignoring all this time. It requires you to take stock of precisely what is wrong with your life so you can work on make it right. It requires you to be completely honest about how you really feel, and then it requires you to actually feel it. Healing requires you to feel the depth, heartaches lingering in your head, in you, instead of subconsciously recreating the experience so you have an outlet to release it. Healing is no longer trying to sanitize your experience, to cleanse it until it's made perfect. Healing requires you to go through the full extension of every emotion that you cut off and buried when you decide you're no longer comfortable with it. Healing requires you to face every ounce of darkness within you. Because just beneath what appears to be an impermeable barrier of complete, radical, total freedom, when you're no longer scared to feel anything, when you're no longer resist any one part of your life, something magical happens. You find peace. Let's be clear. You are not going to suffer forever. This is not going to hurt for long. But to trick yourself into thinking that healing is getting progressively better until you have unraveled all of your past experiences and can return to the version of yourself you were before you got hurt, well, that's to miss the point entirely. We're meant to go through these periods of what some refer to as positive disintegration. It's when we must adapt our self-concept to become someone who can handle, if not thrive, in the situation that we are in. This is healthy. This is normal. This is how we are supposed to respond. But we cower because we'll be uncomfortable. It's not immediately giving us the virtues of what we're taught. It's a worthwhile life, comfort and ease, and the illusion that everything is perfect on the surface. Healing is not merely what makes us feel better than the fastest. It is building the right life slowly and over time. It's greeting ourselves at the reckoning, admitting where we've faltered. It's going back and resolving our mistakes, and going back within ourselves and resolving the anger and fear and small mindedness that got us there in the first place. Healing is refusing to tolerate the discomfort of change because you refuse to tolerate mediocrity for 1 second longer. The truth is that there is no way to escape discomfort. It finds us wherever we are. But we are either going to feel uneasy, pushing our self-imposed limits, breaking boundaries and becoming who we dream of being, or we're going to feel it as we sit down and mull over fears we fabricated to justify we have refused to stand up again. Healing is going to be hard at first. It's going to mean looking at yourself honestly, maybe for the first time ever. It's going to mean stepping out of your comfort zone so you can leap towards the person you want to be. It is not what makes you more comfortable in it'll. It's what it is, what conditions you to be more motivated by discomfort than you are scared of it, and inspired by your stiff moments, and more than you use them to forge the chains of worry. Healing is going to change everything, but it has to start with you being willing to feel what you're afraid to feel. Let's be clear about something. Becoming the best version of yourself is your natural inheritance. It's what you're born to do. Healing is simply releasing the sickness that is limiting the sickness that is the limiting beliefs and fears that are holding you back from doing exactly that. Healing is not about going back to exactly who you were before, because that person wasn't yet capable of seeing the storm before it hit. And that person didn't know how to shield themselves from it. You aren't supposed to go back to being naive, less jaded, or more unaware. You're meant to return to your blissful mindness, a life in which you didn't know about the contrasts, the pain, all of the good and bad that life can throw at you. What you get on the other side of healing is greater than that. You just haven't experienced it yet to know. What you get for doing through what you get for going through something painful is that you become more resistant, more self sufficient, more empowered. You realize that nothing will save you. And so you must begin the work of saving yourself, which is the entire purpose of your life. When you begin this work, you find your inner strength. You realize you have the power and influence, and you can strategize and redirect your life. You realize that instead of what you can't control, your life can be built on what you do. When you heal, you become stronger where you've been broken. You become grounded where you've been egotistical. You become responsible where you've been neglectful. You become more sensitive and able and conscious. You become more considerate. You're more empathetic. You're more mindful, more careful. But what you don't need to be more of is afraid. Fear is not going to protect you. Action is. Worrying is not going to protect you. Preparing is. Overthinking is not going to protect you. Understanding is. When we hold or when we hold onto fear and pain after something traumatic has passed, we do it as a sort of safety net. We falsely believe that if we constantly remind ourselves of all the terrible things that we didn't see coming, we can avoid them. Not only does this not work, but it also makes us less effective at responding to them if they do. Because most of the time, You're so busy worrying about monsters in the closet, you forget to address the actual things that will erode you over time: your health, relationships, your long term vision, your finances, your thoughts. When you heal completely, you stop tolerating discomfort. When something is wrong, you recognize that it is wrong and take action to fix it because you've seen what happens when you don't. When you heal completely, you're able to think ahead and rationally consider cause and effect. You recognize that your actions will generate results. And if you want to better control the outcomes of your life, you have to better adjust your habits. When you heal completely, you realize that there is nothing more important than being able to enjoy where you are right here and right now. Whatever obstructions are in the way of you being present and savoring your life are the challenges you have to face. Because life is quick and it's temporary. What you have now, you could lose tomorrow. And gripping it so tightly, binding it up with resistance, doesn't mean it's safer. It means that when the day comes, that it passes, as does everyone, you will realize you never really enjoyed it. And healing, it's about getting to a place where you prioritize nothing over the quality of your one short life. Next, 170. I believe it's the last part of the chapter. So let's say page 170. Moving forward isn't about getting revenge. Your glow up might be something others can see. It might not come across as a shift or the surface. In a world of revenge, bodies, and comeback relationships, a world that tries to tell you that your ultimate transformation should be sprayed out across your Instagram feed, you've lost what it really means to heal, to improve, to move on with our lives. The real glow up isn't proving the people from your past wrong. It's finally feeling so content and hopeful about your future that you stop thinking about them entirely. When you want to change your life so it looks different, and only that, you're still arbitrating around the opinion of people who didn't love you and didn't have any intentions to. You can always tell the difference too. People who have truly transformed are not concerned solely with how things appear. Their lives are now focused entirely on how things feel, how they really underneath it all. A real glue up authentic is lifting off all the cover up bullshit, and addressing the real problem. It's healing, it's changing for good. It is for the first time prioritizing your heart over someone else's eyes. Anyone can piece together an image that looks better. Anyone can edit and filter and lay picture after picture side by side to create a narrative, a story, a semblance of the whole. Anyone can build their way into beauty. Anyone can look nicer if they really try to. Anyone can convince you that they are doing better than they really are. If they are so intent on trying to prove that, it's probably because they're still so empty inside. What if you weren't worried about whether or not you look bigger or smaller or nicer or better than you did 10 years ago? What if you were more concerned about whether or not you gain self respect, real relationship, emotional freedom, mental clarity, or a job you appreciate, work respect, a kinder and more empathetic disposition? What if your accomplishments were not something you could photograph or measure, nothing you could loosely try to communicate across some pixels and status updates? How are you feeling today? Better than you did yesterday? More whole? More confident? The truth is that there is no before and after life. We're always in a process of shedding and becoming. The snapshot moment we're waiting for, that instance in which someone dares to look at you again and sees finally that you're thriving. It's a game for you and you're you alone. Nobody is looking at you the way you think they are. Nobody's thinking about you the way you wish they would. They're looking at themselves. They're thinking about themselves. They're reading themselves. This isn't sad. It's free. This should be the crux of your ultimate liberation. The truth is that you have nobody to prove wrong but yourself. The people from from your past probably didn't disapprove of you nearly as much as you feared they did. This closure is for you. This growth is for you. This change is yours. This is you versus you. You meeting you. You seeing you for the first time. This is about you becoming who you know you can be. This is about you finally living up to your potential. But mostly, this is about you recognizing that you were not your best self before. You didn't behave the way you wish you would have. You didn't do what you should have. You weren't what you hoped you'd be. Whatever you want desperately to prove someone else wrong, you're really trying to pull or on lingering disappointments that we didn't live up to our own expectations. So remember this. The next time you're trying to craft a glow up story that is compelling to others, ask yourself why you're still waiting for their approval. Then answer, most always, is that you still do not have your own. Wow, that was an intense reading. It's been 1 hour and 40 minutes since we started. My voice faded out a few times, but we made it. We're two chapters away, and we're going to finish that up strong. Thank you guys so much for staying tuned. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.